Meanwhile, over at Marvel Rivals, well, ta-da, they're celebrating the marriage, the heterosexual marriage of two white people, by the way. Not Steve, Reed Richards, little different fella. Reed Richards and Sue Richards, as of this very moment on screen, are now married, and their modding includes a special sound package in which "Here Comes the Bride" plays when Sue uses her psionic push to destroy enemies. I don't want to play it here because I don't know if that sounds copyright protected. It would be the Chinese to do that. So then Reed also has a special line of dialogue. I believe that he says, "On my wedding day," as
Yeah,
he
they
gets
get
in
they
that
get
really
special
big.
dialogues, and
Yeah.
then they both have that scene you're seeing right here. This is their win screen. So like when you win the match, if you're
Uh,
the MVP, you whether you're Sue or Reed, you will get the scene of them like putting the ring on each other's fingers.
Oh, it's
yeah.
cute.
No,
Yeah.
it is really cute.
One of
No,
the
go ahead,
things
Snyder.
that I really appreciate about this is that Reed is not an obnoxious piece of shit. They had a chance to Soldier 76 him, to make him like this grouchy asshole science obsessed dickwad, and instead they said no, he's actually in love with the woman,
Well,
and
here's the
he's,
thing.
you know,
They do still present him as that very science oriented, science focused, like that's always on his mind thing. There is a for example, if like some characters, if you pick like, Spider-Man and Venom, they'll have like a dialogue that is unique to those characters. And when you're on a team with Reed and Sue, one of the dialogues that can come up, for example, is like, wow, Reed, like, or no, Reed goes like, see, Susan, aren't you like, this is what you were asking for. We finally get away, a different location.
oh,
And
we have
she
time
goes like,
together.
and she goes like, yeah, but this isn't really what I meant. You know that, right, honey? And he
Right.
goes like,
So
oh, I get what you mean. And so like that's still there. But what the difference is that
it's
in
innocent.
recent years, you've seen a curve away from Reed Richards essentially being like an autistic sort of guy who
Mhm.
maybe doesn't get social cues, but is still, good at heart, Illuminati stuff aside. You've got, you now the more prevalent interpretation of him, at least before they came back after Secret Wars, was Reed's like an abusive, like, I'm doing my work, whatever, get out of my face. And that unfortunately has become the Reed of the characters, no pun intended,
Well,
that a lot of people have like left onto, but it's not like an accurate one. It's very much a reactionary one. So what you're seeing here is like the actual Fantastic Four.
Well, they don't like the fact that one of Reed Richards' biggest attributes is that he's literally the smartest man in the entire Marvel universe, and they have created a multitude of characters over the course of the
I was gonna
last
say,
10,
doesn't
15
matter. We got
years.
Ironheart. She beats him every day.
Exactly. I mean, we just keep creating new characters every in the last 10, 15 years. Be like, see, Reed Richards isn't the smartest one anymore. Here comes insert black girl number 4, because there's like 6 of them now who are
But
just
and
equally
but
as
what's
smart.
always so awesome with that is we do have that. We've seen that a bunch of times. We have Ironheart, we have Moon Girl, all that stuff. But that's always like, you can tell when that character is like from an activist sort of writer or a younger writer, because they write a character like that. The best part is there's always this big push to, yeah, Moon Girl, say she's the smartest one. Eventually, Marvel has to do a big crossover, because that's what comic book publishers do. They'll put on like a veteran writer who actually has like, been in the industry for a while, and
Who actually knows
inevitably
what they're doing.
they will always go like, oh, yeah, we need to go get Reed Richards for this. Like, we need to go
Mhm.
talk to the actual smartest man. And they'll always make an excuse where it's like, the tests are always shifting or whatever. And I'm just like, no, you can't sell that. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the recent Spider-Man comics tried to sell this idea that, oh, look, Norman Osborn is a good guy. Like, he's actually purged of all the goblinness. And it's like, literally nobody is going to buy that. Like, nobody buys this because you guys, like, it just doesn't happen. And you guys, I don't know.
Well,
It's
who
so
wants a
it's pathetic.
Norman Osborn without the Goblin? That's just, what was he? The
It'd be like
Gold
if
Goblin?
Doomsday just showed up and be like, "No, guys, I changed this time for reals."
I just want, look. Hey, anybody want to play Uno? Okay, Uno for the world. All right, we'll play
And
Uno to
that
settle this.
I think
Yeah.
I
Chill,
think
bro.
you
Chill.
and I might have talked about it, Cider, like just between us. But my big worry for this first step movie that's coming out, like to link it back to the MCU, is that they are going to try to and roll with that interpretation of Reed as sort of this giant asshole. Like, publicly I'm Mr. Fantastic, and then in private, I'm Gur, burr, burr, burr. Because one, there were a lot of like casting rumors that said a lot of male actors had been offered the role of Reed, but they said no because that like they were like, this is an awful character. Like that doesn't seem fun. That doesn't like ew. Like that seems genuinely icky to me to like play a character that uncharacteristically mean. And then and this is where I think you put it in my head, Cider, but we get a lot of the shots of them in like the Baxter building, in the really set up, kitchen and all that stuff. And I fear that this is some sort of, Reed is keeping them locked in, sort of like they did with Wanda in like Infinity War, right? Like you have powers, you're dangerous, but we're gonna keep you inside. And then he's doing that against their, I don't know. I'm so worried about that movie because I don't have any hope in Marvel, but there's also no setup here. Yeah.
If I'm honest with you, Marvel would not have approved this interpretation of Reed if the movie was going to divert from this. Here's the thing that I've learned watching how Marvel Rivals has influenced the fan base of Marvel MCU. They want to see Marvel Rivals come through. They want that in the movies now. They want those characters. And Fantastic Four arriving in Marvel Rivals lit everybody on fire. You remember that? That was talked about for weeks out their costume design, especially Sue. And so what you're going to see is the Fantastic Four movie stumble through that. But what they've done, in my opinion, is they've created a plastic Reed, and they're not going to characterize him until the last half hour of the movie. And that's when he's not the villain. That's when he's not the bad guy. What you're going to get is Pedro Pascal surrendering to Sue's desire to be with him. And that'll be the big takeaway, is that Reed has been the one that's like, I have to save all of everybody. I'm responsible. Remember, you see him in the trailer, and he's trying to figure out where everybody belongs. He talks about like, I'm trying to, and that's been his big crux. So he's presented as being distant, and he's like dismissive of Sue. But this whole time, we, the audience, are seeing him toiling away on like, how do I fix Ben? How do I make sure that Johnny's not lighting on fire in the middle of a date and potentially hurting his date? And he's very concerned about this, and he's taking it on like, this is my penance, my sin. So he's turned them into superheroes, like you were talking last week with me about this. He's turned them into superheroes to try and give them like, you're not freaks. Ben, I know you're a giant rock monster, but guess what? We made an action figure out of you, and half the Midwest wants your autograph. And he's trying to make sure that this, and that's why he wants to take them into the rocket into space. It'll move them into the MCU timeline for them to meet up with Doom in the proper sense. Now, that's why in the last half hour, you're going to have him surrender to Sue's love. And that's what the whole corner of is. She's going to be stuck up because he's not loving her. Typical, wife's not getting enough dick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to be that typical attitude. And because they're very afraid. They're very afraid for this movie. Fantastic Four means jack shit to people under 30. All right. They don't care. But the people that are like 30
at this point.
Well, no, because Leslie pointed out that 05 movie was a pretty big deal. I missed it here. Yeah, right here. That 05 movie was a pretty big deal. I call them Burger King superhero movies because, like, for whatever reason, when you're watching those early Marvel movies, those early superhero DC movies that came out, it just has the color palette of a Burger King commercial.
I like that more. I like those ones more than what we get nowadays, where it's just
yeah. And so so that's just, they're Burger King superhero movies. And so they really haven't had anybody care about this franchise since then. So they want to reintroduce Reed as a positive character to begin with. It's the master that we're going to see in Doomsday. Because they've got to introduce.
Hey, I just want to see that.
I'm still convinced we're going to see White Black Panther show up, and he's going to get aced by one of like the Maestro or the Master or one of those guys that is meant to be like the uber duper villain. And that'll be their gateway into pretending to be a good guy, is they'll kill White Black Panther.
If Disney does not have a scene in Secret Wars where it's like, it's Black Panther, he takes off his helmet and it's Ryan Gosling and everyone's staring at him, he just goes, what? If they don't have a scene like that in the film, they have no idea.
Wakanda's in South Africa.
No, he takes it off. He's like, what? You've never met a man from Wakanda before?
Yeah.
But he has to say it in the African accent.
What? You never meet a man from Wakanda? See,
Oh
I
wow.
like that
Wow,
interpretation.
Ryan Gosling doing Chadwick Boseman's accent. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Ryan Gosling
Oh,
doing Chadwick
no.
Boseman doing African. Yes.